Hello y'all, welcome back to the Craft Castle. Today we're going to make this super cute wooden and acrylic tic-tac-toe X's and O Valentine. This is a perfect little Valentine's Day gift and class gift for your kids at school or even just for your kiddos. Something really important here is we're going to create this from scratch in Inkscape, but also how to get this really thin single line font in Inkscape. This is the important little trick right here. Good for a whole bunch of uses. So we're going to learn how to design this entire thing from start to finish. Don't forget this little important detail right here and how to assemble this. So I'm going to start here today and then we're going to get into the design process. First things first, all you're going to need is a thin sheet of wood. I get these at Home Depot, cut down, and then a little bit of acrylic for the X's and O's. One thing that's very important when you're working with wood, and I see this a lot with brand new makers, is that they are not masking their wood. They're just cutting it and engraving it just like this. But when you do that, you're going to be left with what is called charring, and it is not cute. So pick yourself up some masking tape. I'll have all the supplies linked in the description of this video so you can go ahead and click and shop, but you need to pick yourself up some masking tape. This gigantic roll lasts me a really long time, and I always mask front and back of the wood. Now, if you are using something that you're never going to see the back of the wood, then, masking the back is optional, but most of the items that I have all get seen from the front and the back. So like this X's and O's right here, we'll just knock those out. This right here is super clean and looks really nice. I will show you later what it would look like if we didn't do masking tape, but just know you have to mask everything. Make sure you mask. So not optional for this project is going to be a little bit of acrylic. I have some pink and red or burgundy, and then a sheet of wood, masking tape. The glue that I use for all of my wood and acrylic items is this glue right here. It's super tight, it's all-purpose universal glue. It's silicone, but it's almost like a rubber cement, and then I always rebottle in these small bottles. The nozzle for this is super thick and big, and so when you're working in small little spaces like in between these lines, you have a tendency to get glue in places that you don't want. So I always like to put it in a needled nose just so it's easier to glue, less of a mess. When you're adding in your masking tape, I like to take like a brayer or just like a credit card or something just to put the masking tape on so you get a really good adhesion onto your wood. And then to take the masking tape off of both the acrylic and the wood, I always like a plastic razor blade. And then I have just some junky weeding tool pick, like vinyl tool pick. This is nasty, it's old, and I only use it for when I'm working with masking tape for my wood or my acrylics. I don't use this for actual vinyl or HTV. Essentially, that's all you're going to need. I am going to use my Glowforge for this project today, and then you're just going to need a computer. We are going to be using Inkscape, which is a free design program. You can go ahead and download that, and I absolutely love the program because it is free. All right, so let's get to the computer. The beauty of this project is we are not going to be uploading or tracing anything. This is going to be all your own design. You can do whatever you want with this, but the coolest thing is we're only going to use a little bit over here and then the stuff that's on the very top. That's it. So you're going to be able to design this like nobody else has. So I'm going to zoom out. This is what our finished product is going to look like. I'm going to put this over to the side. We're going to start with the very basics, and we're going to start with a back. I'm going to come over here to the create a rectangle, and I'm just going to click on that, and we're going to make a square. Doesn't matter the size, we're just going to make a square. When you do that and you've created a box, now make sure this is still highlighted, and up here at the very top, this is where you're going to round your corners. And we can come up here and we can make them more round. Let's zoom in to this corner down at the very bottom. Zooming in is doing this on your trackpad. If we make the number bigger, do you see how the corner of your line is getting a little bit more rounded edge? And then if you go down, it's going to be less. So this is the beauty of creating your own SVG files, because you can make the corners as round or as not round as you want. If you wanted just sharp corners, then put this to 0. I'm going to bring mine up to 2. And then when you're done, we're just going to press that arrow tool and zoom out. So essentially that is your finished backer. This is going to be your backer piece. Okay, then what I always like to do is I like to come up here into millimeters and then change this over into inches. And then we're going to resize this. You can size it whatever you want. I'm going to do 3.5 inches by 4.5 inches. Okay, so this is going to be your backer piece, and we are just going to duplicate that. So taking this, click on your now rectangle, and we're going to do Command D, which is duplicate. Doesn't look like anything happened. It's going to be right on top of each other. We're just going to take that one. We're going to slide it over. This is very important. No more resizing, because you're going to lay two pieces of wood together. You want to make sure it stays the same size for both. So no more resizing your backer piece or the front piece. Then what you're going to want to do is we're going to have our little squares that are right here, right? So I'm just going to take another one of my rectangles, and I'm going to just make it a little bit bigger. This time I think I want some sharp edged corners. So I'm going to zoom in, just making sure that I'm going to pay attention to this corner, and I'm going to set this to 0 and press enter. See how it's now sharp? That's exactly what I want. Okay, before I'm worried about sizing, I just want to get 3, right? X's and O's have 3 across and 3 down. So I'm going to come over here into my arrow tool, drop this down, and I'm going to do 2 duplicates. So Command D, drag this over, and then another Command D, and then drag this over. Not worried about sizing right now. Then really we're not worried about sizing, but we are worried about spacing. If you want your spaces to be really thick, I don't really have thick spaces in between mine, but if you want them really thick, you can have it. Just know, the wider your spaces right here, these things, the smaller your little squares are going to be on the inside. So I don't want them to be too big, but I definitely don't want them to be too small that it's going to be too thin that the laser cutter is not going to want to cut it. So don't worry, it does not need to be perfect, but we just kind of want to eyeball our spacing sizes here. Okay, selecting all 3, so shift and then just click on all 3 of the squares. We're going to come over here into this align and distribute. If it's not already up, click this button at the top, and we're going to align it to the top. And then we're also going to go down here to the distribute, and we're going to make sure that everything is evenly distributed throughout. So we're just going to hit that button. And do you see how the middle rectangle kind of shifted a little bit? That's exactly what you want. And then what you want to do is Command G, which is group. We're going to group all 3 of those together. And now we're going to make 2 additional lines. So we already have the top one, so we're going to do the 2 additional. So Command D, which is duplicate, drag it down. We're not too worried about spacing right now. And then we're going to do another one, Command D, which is duplicate. Okay, remember, we're not really worried about spacing, because now what we're going to do is we're going to select all 3 of these lines. So make sure you have it, all 3 of the lines entirely selected. So now a big box is around all 3 of them. And we're going to come over here and we're going to distribute vertically. And then we're also going to come down here to distribute, and we're going to distribute them vertically like that. And do you see how that middle line shifted just a little bit? That makes sure that it is nice and even throughout. Now, if you're a stickler for wanting it looks like it's going to be the same size, but if you're a stickler for this right here to be the same width as this down here, then all you need to do is come over here into the rectangle. I'm just going to draw a rectangle, and I'm going to fill this a different color so we can see what we're doing. Come up over here into the arrow tool again, and just all we want to do is create this red rectangle to be the distance of what that one is. Okay, that's what that is, right? And now come over here into the arrow tool, this little arrow right here, and we're going to do it. We're just going to throw it 90 degrees and come over here. Oh, and our vertical lines are actually a little bit thinner than our horizontal lines. So then all I'm going to do is just select, to make this easier, instead of just ungrouping a whole bunch, I'm just going to take this rectangle and I'm going to make it the size of my vertical line, and then come back over here into this like 90-degree twist. There we go. Okay, now all I'm going to do is make sure that this row, I'm going to bump it up with my arrow tool until it meets the bottom of that red rectangle. And then I'm going to take that red rectangle, I'm going to drag it up to the first line, and doing the same process. Do you see how I'm putting that red rectangle to the very top of that middle row? And I'm going to take that top row and I'm just going to drag it down until it meets the very top of that red rectangle.
I mean, we're talking hairs here if that's really important to you. From the eye, I didn't really even notice it. Okay, now I'm just going to delete that red rectangle because it really didn't mean nothing to me. Because we adjusted things, I'm going to select all 3 of those rows again, and I'm going to come over here and I'm going to just make sure that it's all lined up the way it's supposed to be. Nothing moved, but you never know, so just make sure. Now when you have all 3 of those lines, or now it's going to be 9, we have them as rectangles right now. Do Command G, which is group. And then I'm just going to readjust these. I'm not worried about them looking funny. I'm just going to readjust these to where they fill out most of my rectangle. See in mine how I have just a little bit right here for like the love, and then I got the hugs and kisses on top. So I'm going to fill it out for the most part, but making sure that I leave a little bit of room for my font down here and then down here. When you got it about the size that you want, select those 9 squares, press Shift, and then click on your outside rectangle. And then come over here and we're just going to distribute this vertically. Not too concerned about the horizontals, because if you put this horizontally, it's going to go right in the middle, and that's not really the look I'm going for. If you did that, just press Command Z, which is back, and we're going to be left with something that looks like our tic-tac-toe. It is going to look a little bit different than what I've had here, because that's the beauty of creating your own SVG files, is that you create it however way you want. Sometimes I create it like this, and sometimes I'm going to do it like this. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to add in the text box at the very top. So we're just going to take this font box, and I'm going to just click on anywhere into your project screen, and let's add in our font. Then when you're done, you just want to click this little arrow tool. I'm going to drag this over into the box. And then you want to come down here to the font and text section. And this is where all your fonts are going to be. The one that I used for the hugs and kisses, which is actually my favorite font currently, is this one. I have no idea how to pronounce this font, but it is a downloaded font. I'm pretty sure I got it off defont.com. And then I'm just going to press apply. So when you find the one that you're looking for, just press apply. I am now going to fill this out. Now, if I did not do anything on my keyboard and I wanted to make this bigger, and I took this arrow, do you see how you can do it in height wise and then in vertically, and you can kind of squish it down and it looks all distorted? I am the type of designer that is a stickler when it comes to making sure that we resize our fonts proportionately. So Command Z, anytime that you want to resize your fonts and making sure that your proportions are correct, press Control on your keyboard and then this corner, and you can just drag it and make it bigger. No matter what I do with this font, it will not distort or disproportion the font. I'm going to fill this out the way it is, and when I'm done, I'm just going to let go of both the trackpad and my control button at the same time. And then we're going to take your hugs and kisses, also pressing Shift on your keyboard, and then we're going to highlight your plate for the tic-tac-toe. Coming over here to align and distribute, and just press center. I want to make sure that this is completely center. Okay, since there is going to be a little bit of a gap here, I'm just going to make these just a little bit bigger, just so it fills it out a little bit more. All right, we're looking good so far. Okay, so now for this love mom sign, this little thing right here. If you want a single line font in Inkscape, there is not very many downloaded fonts that you can download that will achieve the look that you're going for. The bubble letters is what is easily described for this. If you ever are in the Glowforge and you see it is engrave, cut, and then there's a button for score. And if you score that and you are trying to do a font, because scoring is a lot easier and quicker than engraving, there is a huge difference here. Plus the look is a little bit different. But if you're wanting a single line font just like this, that is small, super quick, and super easy for all of those small, quick little projects, what you want to do is just add in a text box. And this time I am going to put Love Mom. Now, when you do this, you cannot edit after you're done. So if you have any spelling miserrors or anything like that, you're going to have to make sure before, otherwise that you are going to have to do this entire step all over again. With that, we're going to go at the very top. And I'm not sure if my screen's going to cut this off or not, but it's at the very top, and you're going to see Inkscape, File, Edit, View, Layer, Object, Path, Text, Filters, Extension, and Help. Click on Extension, and this drop down box will pop up. Go into Text, and then do Hershey text. Why they named it Hershey text, I have no idea. Click on Hershey text, and then this box will pop up. You can go into live preview. Oh, and did you see how the font changed? That's what we're looking for. You see how this says Hershey one stroke? If you go into the drop down menu, and we are going to go into like bold or one stroke. See how that's like a one stroke? Okay. This is where I'm saying it's very limited because the amount of one strokes that you have are all of 2. You got the Hershey script one stroke, then you have the Hershey Sans one stroke. I'm going to keep it as Hershey Sans one stroke. And when you're done, just press apply. It will look like nothing happened, but just exit out of that and then come over here into your arrow tool. And when you highlight this is going to, try and double click it. You can't because it's now a not edited text, an editable text because you just created a path to it. I have no technical terms for what just happened here, but just trust the process. Okay, when you are doing a score file for this, especially in the Glowforge, we're going to change this to red. So click on the Love Mom and just come down here and we're going to change this to red. It is going to look weird, but don't worry, it's correct. And then to resize this again, we're going to press Control on our keyboard and we're just going to make this smaller at the corner. I'm going to drag this over into the bottom corner. Okay, coming back over into the Hugs and Kisses, if you were to save this and upload this into the Glowforge or any other design program, say like this text is not a path, so it's been deleted. So we're going to change this into a path, making sure that there are no misspellings here because once you have a misspelling and you change it into a path, there is no going back. So you're going to do Command Shift C, which is object to path, Command Shift G, which is ungroup. If you kept it this way, it would cut and engrave very weird. If you were cutting it, engraving it, it would look weird as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to weld it together. So Command Shift and plus sign, which is welding it all together. And in order to tell your laser cutter that you are engraving something, we're going to change this to blue. Now we get to do the fun part, just the X's and O's, that it's so quick and it's so easy. I'm going to just come over here to the side of my project board. This line right here is our project board, and I'm just going to work on the very left of that. Coming over here into the circle, I'm going to draw a circle. Does not matter what the size is right now. Pressing this arrow tool and then coming over here into millimeters, I'm going to go into inches and I am going to make sure this is an actual full circle. So I'm going to go 2 by 2. Okay, now I'm going to come over here to the fill. I'm going to right click on that and I'm going to remove the fill and then you're going to want to duplicate it. So Command D, looks like nothing happened, but we're going to make that small. We're going to create the donut here. So you're going to need the inside. So we already did the duplicate. So Command Shift and then 9, which is shrinking it in. See how we have another donut and it's just getting smaller in there? Beauty of making your own SVG files, you can make that donut any size you want. When you have what you're looking for, just select all and do Command Shift and the minus key. We sliced it in there. So now you have a donut just like this. And then all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna press Control on your keyboard and then that corner, and now it's going to proportionally size it correctly. And then I'm gonna drag this in to my square. You want to make sure that your pieces, your game pieces, fit inside the squares that you're going to cut out. So I'm going to drag that over and I'm just going to resize this to where it is not, it's going to fit, but it's not going to be too small. You don't want it too small, but you definitely don't want it too big. So I'm just going to make this kind of snug. Okay, click out of that. Now let's work on the X's. We've already created that rectangle, so I'm sure you know how we're going to do this. We're going to create that little rectangle, pressing the square. And we're just going to drag this and make this bigger. If you wanted rounded corners, you could do rounded corners. If you wanted straight square, you could do that too. I'm going to actually do straight squares. So I'm just going to take this over to 0 and press enter. I'm going to come back up into my arrow tool. And then I'm going to Command D, which is duplicate. Come over here to your turning it over 90 degrees. I'm going to turn this over 90 degrees. And I'm going to select both of these, so shift and click on both. And I make sure that everything is centered correctly. Because I did not touch anything or move anything, this should not actually readjust at all because I didn't move anything. But just to be sure, because you definitely don't want your X to look a little weird. Do Command Shift and then the plus sign, which we welded it together. come over here, drag this in, and then we're gonna make this smaller. So Control and then your arrow tool. It looks like a plus sign. So let's go over here and we'll make it like that. So then it looks like your X. There we go. Now it looks like an X and no longer like a plus sign. Okay, then I'm still gonna resize. So just taking Control and then I'm just dragging this to where it just gets a little bit bigger. Okay, so I like the look of that. Now that I have my X done, when I come over here into my O, my X seems really thick and my O does not seem thick at all, right? So I'm gonna click my O and I'm gonna bring it over here to the left. And I already sliced this, which is such a bummer. But there is a cool trick that just kind of reverts this. I'm gonna do Command-Shift-K and it's gonna be releasing the pass. So now it looks like I have two circles, which is perfect, right? So I'm gonna click out of that, click my little circle that I have, and I'm gonna do Command-Shift and 9 again, and I'm gonna make it smaller until it's about the width that I think it's going to be for the X, just so it kind of looks a little bit like it's two of the same sized pieces. Okay, when I have the sizing correct, I'm gonna take my small circle, I'm gonna bring it up, and then I'm going to select both and do Command-Shift and the minus key. And there you have it. There is now your finished O. Because I did not resize the the big O, it's just gonna fit right in there. And now it kind of looks like both of these are going to be the same width, which is exactly what I'm looking for. And y'all, I mean, essentially that is your finished SVG file right here. Before we go into cutting, I always like to make sure that my line widths are all the same when I'm cutting. So if you're cutting, select all the pieces in your file. There we go. That's all going to be cut. So everything that is a black line, we don't want any fill. Down at the bottom where it says different, we're going to right click that and we're going to remove the fill. And then for stroke, we're going to right click that and we're going to change it to black. And then this number right here, right click that and change it to 0.1. See how it went from thick to now everything, if we click out of it, all the line widths are exactly the same. That's what you're wanting. Okay, zooming out, because I'm gonna need 5 of these, I'm just gonna drag these over and put them on the outside and making sure it's not touching anything else. Now we're gonna need 5, so I'm just going to take these and I'm going to duplicate them. So Command D, duplicate, making sure that's not touching anything else. And we're just going to create 5 X's and 5 O's. Okay, then all you want to do is come up here into File and then Save. Now when you have that saved, just go into the Glowforge app, press the Import Artwork, upload, and then find your file. Okay, here is going to be my finished file. This was actually the original one, so I'm just going to select that and delete it. My Glowforge is currently centering, but we can continue working on it until it starts up. So I'm going to come over here into Unknown, and the material that I'm using is maple plywood. So I'm going to select the medium maple plywood, and then I'm going to set this to engrave. I personally like to change the settings of the engrave. I don't like the settings too deep and super dark. So I'm going to set this engrave to SD settings, but come over here into the arrow tool, and instead of 500, I'm going to do full speed. I'm going to set the power to 60 power, and then click out of it. Do not click this back button. If you click the back button, it's going to send it back to the original cut settings or the engrave settings. So click out of it. That means it's staying the way it is. Now, this right here, that Love Mom, right now it says it wants to cut. We're going to select that and we're going to go to score, and then I'm going to leave it as draft and then click out of it. And then everything else is going to cut. Now let's prep our wood and we can go ahead and cut this. Okay, so here is our piece of wood and then our masking tape. I always like to take my masking tape and get a big chunk out, about as long as what your piece of wood's going to be. There we go. It's about the length of my wood, and I'm just gonna line this up to the very bottom, making sure that we don't have any overhang or it's not going to get any crinkles or creases into it. You wanna do this as flat as possible. There we go. We're gonna use our brayer here in a second, but we just wanna make sure that it's nicely even on there. Then when you have your first layer, I always like to flip this over, and it's stuck on my belly, and I like to pull my roll towards me. And we're just going to get like a nice big chunk just like before, and I'm just gonna take that one where I lined up on the one, and I'm gonna line up my bottom of my tape with my wood. Okay, we're gonna lay this down. Once you have it kind of pressed on the top, don't worry about anything else right now. Just make this as big as your piece of wood. I am just going to use a razor blade, and I'm going to take my razor blade and I'm going to go to the very end of my piece of wood and then just drag this down. There is your nice clean cut. Then you're done with your masking tape. Now that you have that, it is very important that you take your brayer. You could also probably use a credit card or your plastic razor blade, and you want to rub down the entire thing. That just makes sure that you have a good adhesion with your masking tape, and then when you're engraving it, it does not fly off your wood and then create a fire. So we have one side, we're gonna come over and we're gonna do the front side. You want to make sure that you don't have a whole lot of creases, but you also want to make sure that there is no air bubbles as well. Making sure that we have a really good adhesion of our tape. Okay, and then when you're done, you can take this over to your Glowforge and put it in. Remember, we are going to cut the X's and O's in acrylic, so I'm just going to drag this over to where it's off the project board. Anytime it's off the project board, that means that it's not going to do anything. Okay, I'm going to select all of these, taking the most out of all my material. I'm going to bring this over to the side. I always suggest that you come over here into these dotted lines and you set focus, and you just put it wherever your material is, set the focus. If you've ever had your Glowforge not cut all the way through on your material, or you get this like dreaded, there's like an error message that sometimes pops up here, like it didn't scan or it didn't read the material correctly, and then you don't get it cutting the way that it's supposed to and all the way through. It's because you're not set focusing. So I always like to set focus, and then this like little square box will pop up. That means that it's perfect and it should cut the way it's supposed to. So then I'm just going to rearrange this to where we're going to make the most out of all of our material. The other thing too is I like to pin down my material. Here you can see at the bottom right corner right here, but then also at the left right here, these little pins. It's a free file in my shop. I'll link them in the description of this video. I know people on Etsy, it is a free file no matter where you go, or it should be. Glowforge does offer it, but then we have people that are on Etsy trying to make a buck or two and they're selling the files. Do not purchase these files. They are free. They are given to you from Glowforge. They are free. I also have them free on my website as well, just so you are not tempted to spend that buck on a not free file. Oh, it makes me so mad that people are trying to sell a free file. Okay, so now that we have that box, we're just going to press ready. It's going to take 5 minutes and 55 seconds. So when this is all ready, you're going to go back to your Glowforge and you're going to press that magic button. Okay, so here's our finished wood pieces. I'm just going to press dismiss, selecting these. I'm going to drag these over, and then I'm going to find my X's and O's. So going over here to the left. Before I do that, I'm going to set focus again. So going up here into the three dots, press set focus. I'm going to press anywhere on that actually has the focus or the material. Do not press on the focus right here, because that is like the honeycomb part, and that's not what you're trying to cut. Making sure that my material is now going to be set to medium clear acrylic. For every single acrylic that I use, it does not matter the color. I always use medium clear. I never use any other acrylic setting. So making sure that your O's are one color. So I'm going to put my O's on this, selecting that, moving that over. Okay, when you have it adjusted the way you want to, and then you also have that little square somewhere, making sure that everything is set to medium acrylic or your acrylic setting. We're going to come up here and we're going to press ready, and it says it's going to be 1.5 minutes or almost 2 minutes. So let's go ahead into the machine, press the magic button, and then we'll come back and assemble it. Okay, as we wait for the acrylic to cut, all you want to do is take your plastic razor blade. We're just going to take off the masking tape. Okay, so if you were not to put masking tape on the back, this right here is called flashback, and there would be a whole lot of burn. I'm okay with it being like this because it is on the masking tape, but when you take the masking tape off, you won't have this. However, again, if you did not have your masking tape on, everything you see here would be on the back of your wood, and that's just not cute. See how nasty that is? And we're just gonna take that off, and look at that. All of that nastiness is gone. Now, when it comes to the front, if you don't mask the front, this right here is the charring that I was talking about. And this is what you would have on the front of your piece. Now, you could go in and sandpaper this if you wanted to, but that's just an additional step that I don't like doing. So that's why I always mask. And now you're left with just a beautiful piece of cut wood.
Coming to the back, again, with all of that nastiness that's on there and on the sides, let's take that off. 1, 2, 3, look, none of that nastiness is on there. This is exactly why you should be masking all of your material. Okay, so our acrylic is done, so let me go get that. Okay, and then with acrylic, I don't like to use the plastic razor blade. I like to use that weeding pick that I have, and I just like to take the corner and take this off. Most of the time, if you're dealing with glossy acrylics, it should come off really clean and really easy. Okay, so now that everything is demasked, we have these two, and then we have our acrylic pieces. I'm just going to take my glue that I'm gonna use, and then I'm gonna flip over the top, and I'm just gonna add a little bit of glue. You can see that I don't have a ton of glue on there. I made sure and went around all the lines because we wanna make sure that it's a good adhere on there. And then at the top, I just went around and then just one squiggly line in the middle. That's all the glue that you need. So taking just the back and this, I'm gonna flip this over and I'm gonna make sure that it's nicely lined up. I don't want to scoot this around a whole lot because the glue will get into different places. So I wanna make sure that it's nice and lined up before I go together. So you can see I have it kind of like floating on top and on the sides. I have not put the two pieces together yet. And then when you have it nice, good, and lined up, just press down. Giving it a good press all the way around. Now you can put this like underneath some books or clamps to make sure that you have a good, nice, good adhesion. Because I didn't use a whole lot of glue, this is pretty good and stuck on there and won't slide around. The littlest glue, the better. And I see that I have a little bit of glue just kind of coming out on the side right here. So I'm just going to use my weeding tick and I'm just going to rub out the glob of glue before it dries. There we go. And now it's gone. Then I'm gonna add in my X's and then my O's. And there we have it, our finished X's and O's Valentine's Day gift. And you made this all by yourself in Inkscape for free. You didn't have to purchase any files. All right, y'all, I sure hope I inspired you to make, and I will see you later.